right, today we want to talk to you about the Passover, the Festival of Weeks, and the Festival of Tabernacles. Okay, so we want to talk to you about these because during these time frames, we're given the unique opportunity to offer God in advance, during, and after a time frame of blessing. By doing so, we give God the authority to move in those areas of our life, of our finances, of the increase that He's promised us, and to actually make it increase. We also, when we follow this guideline, we set ourselves up for proper expectation of giving. When we set ourselves up for proper expectation of giving, what occurs is we don't get weary of well-doing. We know what's going to happen. We know when it's going to come out. And we allow God at that point in time to take whatever desires in our heart to give and either expand it and grow it or shrink it down, whatever the case may be. So that way, whatever we give is always going to glorify His name. He didn't give specific amounts during these time frames to give. Now, the priests later assigned specific amounts, and you can locate these in the Jewish Encyclopedia. Now, that being the case, let me go over some of this a little bit more in detail. Technically, the Passover was close to the very beginning of when you would harvest, if not prior to harvest. That's when the date would be set for. Now, the reason why I say that is because different crops were yielded at different times of the year, and so on and so forth. If that's the case, then there could have been a crop already prepared and ready to be harvested, and then there could be a crop that wasn't. That's why I said roughly the beginning of harvest, even a little bit before then. Then you go from there to the weeks, Feast of Weeks, and so at this point, you've already begun to be taking a harvest, and you're giving a portion of that back to God in relation to what He's blessed you with. Then you have the Feast of Tabernacles. You're giving your very best. You're celebrating because God has done far exceeding what you ever expected Him to do. 3 different ways of giving. 1, in anticipation of God, the Passover. Already with the expectation of what He did for the children of Israel, but anticipating that He'll do the same for you. So you give an offering in anticipation. 2, during the process of you reaping what you've already sowed, whatever portion of that is fitting, completely in proportion of what you have taken in, you're to give out, completely in proportion to it. You're not trying to go above and beyond at this point. You don't want to lose heart in well-doing. That's the 7 weeks after your first offering. Then everything's come to a completion. That business cycle is over. You're getting ready to enter your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, whatever business cycle you are on. You're rejoicing because God supplied far above your expectation. At that point in time, you give your best offering. But don't forget, in addition to giving your best, you now go ahead and give your first fruit with it. Now, although first fruits have been misinterpreted in some cases, let me explain that. First fruit came about because vineyards and orchards take a little bit of time to produce. So sometimes they take 1, 2, 3, 4 years to actually gain a crop. And you might have several different buckets from which they're producing. So the first fruit was set in the same time as the Feast of Tabernacles for these little side projects that you're doing that are just getting off the ground, that are just now producing fruit. Now you're taking 1/30th to 1/60th of what that's projected to do or what that has done, and you're yielding that in addition to your other offerings, to your best offerings. And that's going directly to the priests. But by doing this, we are setting a template up by which to negate our own glory and honor and give it all to God. That's the whole point. It is not to be blessed. Let me repeat that. If we do this in such a way that we are trying to be blessed, that we are trying to seek out money, we will fail. When you give these offerings in such a way where you want to give God everything there is to give, you will always succeed. When you do it to put God as Lord of your life, you will succeed. But when you do it only as a principle, only as a rule, and not as your worship, and not saying, because I'm doing this, I'm having complete faith in God that he'll do what he said do, and you're not living by faith in those actions, you will not yield completely what God has for you, and you will leave some on the table. And that cannot happen. We must step into what God has for us and what he's predestined for us to receive as children of God. We must not let the desires and the cares of this world take that expectation away from us. We have to live up to his expectations. So I leave you today. I need you to understand that we're going to be exploring these a little bit more. The intricacies and what God really has in store for us and how they apply even more so to the business world and how we can set ourselves up for success all the time. Thank you for your time today. Amen.